Move to question time. Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Before the election, the Minister for Employment said people will be seeing in their bank accounts what the change of government means. Last night's budget confirms that inflation will be higher, electricity prices will be higher, gas prices will be higher, real wage growth will be lower, and under a conservative analysis, the average Australian family will be at least $2,000 worse off by Christmas. Minister, is this what Labor mean when they say Australians will be seeing what a change of government means in their bank account?
Order. Order. Before I call the Minister, I'm going to warn the Senate. I do appreciate— Order, Senator Ayres. I do appreciate that people are very keen to make a contribution about the budget, for better or for worse, but I am going to ask people to do it respectfully and to do it quietly. I will not put up with a lot of interjections because I could barely hear the tail end of Senator Hume's question then, and we've just started. Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Hume for the question. Well, I think Australians expect their government to deliver a responsible budget, an honest budget, a budget that deals with the economic circumstances of the time, a budget that deals and delivers on the election commitments, and that deals and fixes the mess that we inherited from the former government, the mess in skills, the mess in energy, the debt and the deficit that you left us, rising inflation, rising interest rates, a crisis in the energy markets in this country, an energy increase that you hid before the election. Australians expect honest, responsible budgeting, and that is what they got last night. That is what they got last night. Delivering on our election commitments, not adding to the inflation problem that we are currently dealing with, which I'm not sure any of those opposite actually acknowledge is happening, not contributing to inflation, delivering on our commitments and dealing with the waste and the rorts and the mess that was left to us by you when you were in government for a wasted decade that we, in 5 months, have started taking action on. We're taking action in skills, in childcare, in gender equality, in infrastructure, in health, in aged care, in PPL. All of these areas that you couldn't have given a hoot about. That's what we're doing. We're fixing the problems that were left with us. We are delivering on our election commitments, and that is what the people of Australia expect. They also expect some honesty from their government about the true state of the finances of this country. Things, again, that you hid, the dodgy budgeting that was done in deals with the National Party. We are fixing all of it up.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, at the budget lunch in the Great Hall today, the Treasurer was asked, should Australians still expect that $275 off their power bills, particularly off pre-election prices? The Treasurer responded. Yes, yep. It's in the budget. Minister, where in the budget is that $275?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Your time has expired. I'm waiting. Senators, I'm waiting for silence before I call the Minister. I'm still waiting. Senator Birmingham. Minister Gallagher.
The policy we took to the election in terms of powering Australia, which the modelling underpin, is in the budget. And perhaps you haven't got to that book. Perhaps you haven't moved past the headlines. Perhaps you haven't looked. But I can tell you, not only are we delivering on the policies that we put in place in the election, we have done more because we've inherited a crisis in the energy market, in gas and electricity, and we're fixing that.
Sorry, Minister, resume your seat. Senator Cash.
Thank you. And with all due respect to the minister, this is a point of order in relation to relevance. Senator Hume's question was very, very clear. It referred to a quote in relation to the $275 promise being in the budget. Which page is it in? I would ask that you direct the minister to the question.
Thank you, Senator Cash. I believe, were you seeking
on the point of order? I understand the senator has now finished, but I would say to you, President, that you have ruled, as have previous presidents, that putting a lot of rhetoric and words into a point of order and repeating the question is not appropriate. I was pulled up many times, as you might recall. Senator Brockman is smiling at me. He's smiling at me because he remembers that he pulled me up. So I would ask that you do the same to
Senator
the Deputy
Wong.
Leader, who continues to do that,
Thank you,
rather than
Wong.
ask her own
Please
question.
resume your seat. Thank you. I do believe the minister is being relevant, Senator Cash, and I'll continue to listen carefully. Please continue.
President, and the Powering Australia plan is powering Australia. Well, we
Senator
know.
Henderson.
Look, we know those opposite don't believe in the energy transformation that is currently happening around the world and for which you're going to put your head in the sand on.
Order.
But it is happening. It is happening.
Please resume your seat. Thank you. Please continue, Minister Gallagher.
So, I mean, this is partly why you got booted out, because you don't believe in climate change, right? Because you don't believe in it. You don't believe in the transformation. The Powering Australia plan is in the budget. I'm happy to go through the separate measures that are included in that.
The time has expired. Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. At the Government's Jobs and Skills Summit, the Treasurer said our goals are just as clear. An economy where every Australian who wants a good, secure, well-paid job can find one. But this budget confirms that 144,000 Australians will lose their jobs and that wages will be lower for longer. So is the budget correct? Has the Treasurer broken his promise to the Australian people, just like the Minister for Energy, just like the Minister for Employment and just like the Prime Minister?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, on wages, the policy that you oversaw, which is keeping wages down as a deliberate design feature of your economic architecture, is gone. And if you look in the budget, you will see that wages
Minister
are
Gallagher,
increasing.
please resume your seat. Senator Henderson.
Madam President, just to remind the minister to address her comments through the chair.
What is it that
Thank
you're
you.
seeking, Senator Henderson? What were you? Order. Order. Senator Watt. Senator Henderson, I can only assume you were seeking a point of order. You need to stand and say point of order.
Would you like me to do it again?
Thank you. No, I don't want you to do it again. Thank you. Resume your seat. The minister is being relevant, and I'll continue to listen closely. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. We are a government that wants to see wages move. I don't know if those opposite have noticed, but we are dealing with a tiny bit of an inflation challenge at the moment. There is an issue here which the government is responsibly responding to, and that is impacting on wages. Now, we have supported the minimum wage case. We are backing in a pay rise for aged care workers. We have, in this budget, indexed community organisations so that they too can get a pay rise, something that you guys, when you were in government, never did. We are determined to get wages moving. We are determined to get wages moving and to ensure that nobody is left behind. But these are challenging economic circumstances, and we will continue to work in the interests of Australian people.
Order. Senator Marielle Smith.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Can the minister update the Senate on the government's budget and, in particular, how it is delivering cost of living relief for Australians?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Smith for the question. Last night, the Treasurer delivered a responsible budget that is right for the times and readies us for the future. The budget confronts challenges that have been ignored for too long, and seizes the opportunities that won't wait any longer. It delivers on our commitments that the Australian people endorsed at the last election, affirming their faith in a new government. Australians know a complex combination of challenges at home and abroad is pushing up the cost of living. They know the government can't make inflation disappear overnight. But our budget delivers on cost of living relief that is responsible, reasonable and targeted, and which delivers a long-term economic dividend. Our 5-point plan for cost of living relief includes delivering cheaper childcare for 1.26 million families, with 96% of families with children in care better off and no family worse off, expanding paid parental leave to 26 weeks for working parents, the biggest reform, President, since Labor introduced it in 2011, making housing more affordable and helping more Australians to buy a home, with 30,000 affordable and social homes delivered via the Housing Australia Future Fund returns and an additional 20,000 affordable homes delivered under the National Housing Accord. Cutting the cost of medicines on the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, saving around 1.6 million Australians more than $190 in out-of-pocket costs each year, supporting wage increases for our lowest-paid workers, boosting job security and employee entitlements, and getting wages moving again. I know it hurts your ears, but getting wages moving again. The $7.5 billion package helps put some money back into people's pockets, boosts productivity and grows the economy, but it's carefully targeted and careful for the times so that it avoids placing additional pressure on inflation.
First supplementary.
Can the minister provide further detail on how the government's budget is building a stronger, more resilient and more modern economy?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. Thank Senator Smith for the supplementary. Under the former government, our economy wasn't delivering for Australians like it needed to. The Jobs and Skills Summit brought Australians together to address the challenges and opportunities facing the labour market and the economy, and help reverse the trends we've been seeing after a decade of wasted opportunity. Our budget delivers quality investments in the capacity of the Australian economy, capabilities of the Australian people, including fee-free TAFE and more university places, delivering our Powering Australia plan, building a future with cleaner and cheaper energy. Understand that? That's what we need to do. A future made in Australia.
Senator McGrath.
Investing in priority industries to grow our industrial base, diversify our economy and boost and support regional development and small business. We're also building disaster resilience and preparedness and investing in a value-for-money pipeline of nation-building investments through our infrastructure program.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Marielle Smith, second supplementary.
Can the minister provide further detail on how the government is repairing the budget to pay for what is important?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister.
Thank you, Senator Smith, and yes, I can. Our budget begins the hard task of budget repair, fixing the budget. Let's just remember what we inherited.
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. I'm going to wait for quiet until I ask the minister to continue her answer. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. So we're repairing the budget that was left in with deficits as far as I could see, debt increasing. Remember that? Doubled the debt before the pandemic. We are the first government in a long time to take the issue of budget repair seriously. We have found $22 billion in savings and redirected spending. We're still managing against that backdrop to invest in hospitals, in aged care, in childcare, to support our progress towards gender equality, investing more in the NDIS and deepening relations in the Pacific and making sure that equipping defence to respond to some of the challenges that they are facing. We are managing to do all of this while finding $22 billion in savings to start to repair the budget that you left in tatters.
Your time has expired. When you're finished, Senator Hume and Senator Henderson, you've got a member of your own side on her feet. Senator Cash.
Thank you, President. And my question is also to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. I refer the Minister to her answer to Senator Hume's question, where, in responding to the Treasurer's statement that Labor's promised $275 cut to power bills is in the budget. The minister said that the Treasurer was referring to the Powering Australia measures. Will these measures reduce power bills by $275, as Labor promised?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, a couple of things to kick off with there. One, renewable energy is the cheapest form of energy. That is number one. Number two, there's a war in Europe, right? Right? And number three, we're fixing a decade
Minister,
of...
please resume your seat. Order. Order. Senator Wong. When there's quiet, I'll ask the minister to continue. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Our Powering Australia policy, which was modelled before the election...
Senator Wong and Senator Cash. Please continue.
Thank you. Our policy, which was modelled before the election, clearly outlined the policies that we need to implement in order to put downward pressure on household and business energy bills, and that is what we're doing. Well, if I can respond to the interjection, what about the little sneaky 20% increase that you guys hid before the election? Remember that? Remember that? The Treasurer. Oh, let's take this rather unusual step of not allowing that to happen.
Minister, please resume your seat. Order. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. The 20% increase that was known to the former government before the election. Let's put that out. Then you hid it, and you hid it because you were dishonest. Because that is another reason why you were kicked out of office, because people didn't trust you and they didn't think you were doing the right thing. So let's just...
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator Henderson.
President, on a point of order, I would again ask you to direct the minister to make her comments through the chair. Saying people don't trust you is very derogatory of you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Henderson. The minister is largely addressing the chair. Order. Minister.
Thank you. So we are implementing our Powering Australia plan, and you can see it through the budget. I'm happy to go through measures of it. We've got our Rewiring the Nation. Remember that, because the energy grid isn't fit for purpose.
Senator McGrath.
I wonder why. 10 years of a government that didn't do anything, that didn't do its job. So yes, that's in the budget. We've got money for dispatchable storage technology. We've got money for community batteries.
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator McGrath, you seem to be desperate to ask questions, but you don't ask them. Order. You don't ask them by constantly interjecting across the chamber. Please continue, Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I will. We've got community batteries for household solars. We've got community solar banks.
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
Thank you, and President, the point of order is in relation to relevance. With all due respect again to the minister, you are answering a lot of questions.
What's
potentially,
your point of order?
Yes, but not the question that I asked in relation to will the Powering Australia measures reduce electricity prices by $275 as promised?
Senator Cash,
that was the question.
You've been in the chamber all of this week, and almost every day I've asked people when they're making a point of order to simply state the point of order. You've repeated the question. You just need to stand and make a short statement. If it's about relevance, then make that statement. I do believe that the minister is canvassing a whole range of options around power bills, such as was in the preamble to your question, and I'll listen to the last 18 seconds of the minister's answer, and if she's not being relevant, I will direct her to your question. Minister.
Thank you, President. Well, I was asked about the Powering Australia plan, which is exactly what I'm going to in my answer. So we've got the community solar banks, we've got energy efficiency grants, which my colleague Senator McAllister has got carriage of. We've got other programs in the budget which delivers on the Powering Australia plan, and we know that delivering that will lower power prices. Expired.
Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you. And despite Labor telling Australians that if you were elected, you would reduce their power prices by $275 a year, and despite the Treasurer's misleading statement at the luncheon today, your own budget papers confirm your broken promise. What do you therefore say to Australians who won't be able to afford to keep the lights on and will suffer through the sweltering heat this summer?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. What I say to Australians...
Order. Order.
What I say to Australians who are rightly concerned about increasing power prices, who absolutely, is that they have a government that is 100% focused on responding to this in every way we can, who will work with states and territories, who also have responsibilities here, to do what we can. No, well,
Order.
sorry, President, I know I shouldn't respond to interjections, but I know working with states and territories is a foreign concept to those when they were in government for 10 years. That was part of the problem. So, yes.
Please resume your seat, Minister. Senator McAllister. Order. Across the chamber. Minister, please continue.
A foreign concept where the Federation actually works together in the interests of the Australian people. I know that is foreign. I know that is foreign, but that is what we will do. We are committed to it. From the highest levels of government, we will be dealing with this, and that is what we say to the Australian people about it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cash.
Thank you.
Supplementary.
Prior to the election, Mr Albanese promised Australians that if elected, his government would help Australians deal with the cost of living pressures. As Senator Hume has mentioned, though, your budget last night confirms that by Christmas, the average Australian family will be at least $2,000 worse off. Is a $2,000 hit to the bank accounts of all Australian families Mr Albanese's way of helping with the cost of living?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. There is a $7.5 billion cost of living package in this budget, but we also accept that these are really, really difficult circumstances, really difficult circumstances for households, for families and for businesses. We have, and we inherited, a high inflation environment. We've got high inflation. Well, you can pretend that the inflation problem isn't there, Senator Cash, but we don't have the luxury of doing that. We have to deal with the inflation challenge. We can't add to inflation, and that's why we are working alongside. We don't want to make the Reserve Bank's job any harder. We don't want to fuel inflation. We know that inflation hits households on low income or fixed incomes harder than anyone. So we need to make sure that what we do is responsible, aligns with monetary policy, delivers on our commitments and doesn't add to inflation in the short term. That is what this government will deliver, and that is frankly what we must deliver.
The time has expired. Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to Minister Wong, representing the Minister for Climate Change. The Australian people voted for an end to public handouts to the coal and gas industry. But Labor's very first budget is adding $1.9 billion of new funding on top of keeping the $40 billion of existing subsidies for coal, oil and gas. Why are you too poor to give cost of living relief to families, but not too poor to give away $42 billion of subsidies to the fossil fuel sector and $254 billion in Stage 3 tax cuts to the rich?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, President, I'm going to. I think the first part of the question, the second part was a general political point. First part of the question goes to a matter not in the portfolio I'm representing. I believe goes to the Minister for Resources. So I'd ask you to direct subsequently a question to Senator Farrell.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Wow, that's pretty unprecedented. You don't want to talk about fossil fuel subsidies. Righto. Well, you shouldn't have put them in your budget then if you didn't want to talk about them.
Senator Waters, resume your seat. Order. Order. Senator McGrath. Order. I would ask all senators in this place, Senator Cash, to listen respectfully to the question that Senator Waters wishes to make. I want to see silence on all parts of the chamber. Senator Waters, please continue.
Thanks, President. If anyone in the government would like to answer this, they're welcome to. Minister Bowen was reported in The Guardian saying there would be no new public funding for coal and gas. Why is your first budget giving billions to frack for gas in the carbon bomb that is the Beetaloo Basin and to fund an export terminal in Darwin Harbour for that gas, all without First Nations consent?
Senator Birmingham.
Point of order, President. President, point of order. I just
Senator
want to make
Wong,
clear to the
please
chamber
resume
the
your seat.
opposition will give
Senator
leave
Wong.
for any government minister who wants to answer a question to do so.
Senator Birmingham, that's not a political point. That's not a point of order. Order. Senator Wong. Senator Wong. I assume I'm calling Senator Wong to answer the first supplementary, or am I calling?
I'm interested in the Coalition's newfound cooperation with the Greens, and I invite Senator Birmingham to go and explain that to Mr Dutton in the other place. Senator Waters, we are very pleased to answer questions, and I have answered multiple questions in this chamber that have been directed to the wrong minister. You say it is unprecedented. All we are asking you to do is what question time is people are required to do in question time, which is to address the question to the correct minister and the portfolio. If you wish for assistance in that, we can provide you with that.
Senator Scarr.
But a shame that the Westminster tradition ought be upheld, Senator Thorpe. Perhaps you're not the person to be interjecting on that this week. So, if you wish to seek leave, I'm happy for the matter to be redirected, if that's what you want, to Senator Farrell in his portfolio. But the first question you asked was in relation to the resources portfolio. It is not unreasonable for us to indicate to you that the relevant minister is not the minister to whom you address the question. If you wish to do it, I'm happy to see. I'm happy.
Senator Wong. Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Wong. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Yes, thank you, President. I did in fact invite any minister who wished to speak about fossil fuel subsidies
Senator
to
Waters,
answer the question.
that is
so I'm
not
actually
appropriate.
genuinely unclear on what I meant to do here.
Senator Waters, order. 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 I would remind the opposition in this place, Senator Henderson, that you get most of the questions. It is not unreasonable for Senator Waters to expect silence when she stands to ask her question. Senator Waters, you need to direct your question to a minister.
Well, I don't care who answers it. I just want an answer. Minister Wong, Minister Farrell, whoever. I find it ridiculous that the Climate Change Minister can't answer a question about fossil fuel subsidies. But my final question goes to a windfall profits tax on coal and gas. Why aren't you proposing that, given that the whole crossbench supports it, rather than giving them handouts?
Your time has expired. Senator Waters, I can only assume I'm to call Senator Wong.
I'm not sure which question.
Order. Order.
I'm not sure which question Senator Waters is referring to. It sounded more like a speech, if I may say, than a question. But now Senator Cash is backing you. That's interesting. Well, I have said to you, Senator Waters, on your first question, which goes to taxation measures and other measures in the resources portfolio, if you seek leave that they be directed to the correct minister, I would grant. The Labor Party will grant leave. You've sought not to take that. You've now asked a second question about future tax policy, which I'm happy to respond to and say to you that the government's tax measures are as those set out in the budget.
Senator Green.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Senator Waters, I didn't see you. Resume your seat, Senator Green. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. With your indulgence, I seek leave for all parts of my question to be taken on notice by whomever wishes to respond to me, please. Sure. Thank you.
Senator Waters, Senator Wong has indicated they'll be taken on notice. Senator Green.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government, Senator Watt. How does the budget invest in infrastructure, including in our regions, to deliver the best outcome for the Australian people now and into the future?
Senator Watt. Senator Watt, please resume your seat. I'm waiting for quiet. Senator Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Green. I was very much hoping that I would be asked a question about our infrastructure budget and how it benefits regional Australia. And funnily enough, you asked the question. Good infrastructure is critical to building the nation and the regions we all want and deserve, creating jobs and building better connections within and between communities. And that's why I'm pleased to say that last night's budget delivered a $123 billion infrastructure pipeline over the next 10 years. That is a bigger pipeline than the Liberals and Nationals ever promised, even after we stripped out the waste and the rorts and the smoke and the mirrors of projects that were announced and never delivered. It's an infrastructure pipeline that will deliver in every corner of Australia. In Queensland, Senator Green's home state, over $500 million will be provided.
Senator Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Mackenzie, seriously. Senator Mackenzie, I've called you to order. That's what I expect to happen. It's not a contest between you and me. I'm the President. I've asked you to be quiet. I've constantly had to draw your side of the parliament to order. Senator Watt, please continue.
Thank you, President. As I was saying, in Queensland, our budget contains over $500 million for the Bruce Highway through Brisbane's outer north and between Gladstone and Rocky, as well as locking in over $1 billion for the Coomera Connector Stage 1 on the Gold Coast. In far north Queensland, where Senator Green lives, the Albanese government is investing over $200 million on the Coranda Range Road upgrade between Smithfield and Coranda. In New South Wales, our budget includes a new $300 million commitment for the Western Sydney Roads package, upgrades to Brindabella and Mandalong roads, and even $38.6 million for Coulsons Creek Road in the Hunter, a project that the member for New England claimed to have secured funding for when he had done no such thing. I could go on through every state. In Victoria, there's the suburban rail route as well as money for the Gippsland rail line upgrade. Tasmanians will get safer, faster travel through upgrades to the Bass Highway, Tasman Highway, East and West Tamar highways, and unlike the last government, will actually deliver the Bridgewater Bridge. In South Australia, we've maintained almost $5 billion for the North-South Corridor, many other commitments as well, Western Australia money for the Bunbury Outer Ring Road, as well as the Metronet, and of course the Northern Territory and the ACT are getting great infrastructure investment as well.
Thank you,
we
Senator
are delivering,
Watt.
you just made it up.
Senator Green. Wait for the call. Senator Green, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, how does the budget end the waste and rorts and deliver an infrastructure pipeline that Australians can trust?
Before I call the Minister, thank you. I have Senator Wong on her feet. Senator Wong.
I couldn't hear the second half of the question. I'd ask that the senator be allowed to to repeat it, please.
Thank you. Senator Green, if you would repeat the second half of your question. I did not hear it either. Thank you. Just the second half.
It's a very short question. How does the budget end the waste and rorts and deliver an infrastructure pipeline that Australians can trust?
Before I call the Minister, I'm going to remind senators. Order. Senator Canavan. Seriously, Senator Watt has a loud voice, and yet I can hear a range of interjections above his microphone voice. Order. Order. It is not your point to argue back, Senator Mackenzie. Minister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Green. The very best thing about last night's infrastructure budget is that it is full of projects that Australians can actually believe in. The years of rorts, waste and Barnaby and Bridget funny money and colour-coded spreadsheets are over. Remember the rorting of regional funds? Remember the regional funds that were rewarded to provide swimming pools in North Sydney? Very regional over there in Lavender Bay and Kirribilli, isn't it? Yes, very regional. Remember the $30 million commuter car park that the Coalition announced, even though there was nowhere to build it? Or the absolute debacle of the Leppington Triangle, 10 times the market value. What a bargain! And that's before we get to the inland rail, all those coal-fired power stations Canavan used to promote and never actually got to build. They promised 100 dams and built 2. They spent 10 years lying to the Australian public with funny money and colour-coded spreadsheets, and it has stopped. Finally, Australians have a government they can believe in that will actually deliver and stop the rorts and stop the waste.
Thank you, Senator Watt. I'm waiting again. Senator McKenzie and Senator Watt. And Senator Watt, I remind you when you are referring to people in this place and the other place to use their correct titles. Senator Green, Senator. Your time's expired. I'm going to Senator Green for her second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, how has eliminating the waste and rorts in the infrastructure budget enabled new investment in infrastructure and our regions?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Green. We make absolutely no apologies for getting rid of the false promises and funny money that littered year after year of Liberal and National Party budgets. The Australian people have had a gutful of colour-coded spreadsheets, bad value for money, and the shambles that this lot employed when it came to infrastructure. I've already given examples, but the list goes on. To end the waste and rorts, we are closing down the egregious Urban Congestion Fund, rorted beyond belief by the former government, and we're cancelling a number of their most egregious commuter car park projects as well. The Liberals and Nationals wanted to build car parks on land allocated to affordable housing or at train stations that were being closed down. We want to invest in infrastructure that actually matters. I've got news for the National Party and the Liberal Party. That big slushy machine that you ran for years, that is closed. We are going to be delivering real infrastructure that delivers real economic benefits to our regions and our cities, employs real jobs, and you know what? We'll actually deliver.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Watt. The contract the European Health Agency signed with Pfizer for the purchase of COVID vaccine is now in the public domain. Although its bona fide has not been officially recognised, that contract indicates that, yes, Pfizer was given a financial indemnity against damage claims resulting from harm their COVID vaccine caused. Minister, does our contract that the Morrison-Joyce government signed with Pfizer include a clause that indemnifies Pfizer from any claim for damages resulting from harm to Australians injected with Pfizer's Comirnaty substance?
Senator Roberts, just before I go to that, I believe you directed the question to Senator Watt, but I'm advised that it should go to Senator Gallagher. Senator Gallagher?
If she's representing the Minister for Health.
Thank you. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Roberts for the question. Obviously, this predates this government, the arrangements that were entered into on just give me a chance, Jared. Jeez.
Good to hear from you again, Jared.
I am getting to it. My understanding is there is an indemnity in place, but if I am wrong, I will come and change the record. I understand it was put in place for a number of the new vaccines because they were new, and so there were sort of particular COVID-related arrangements put in place to ensure that we could essentially support the rollout of a widespread national vaccination program, which was so important to ensuring that we protected Australians from the worst of the COVID outbreaks. And that was essentially a secret. Getting the vaccine program rolled out, protecting people in the fastest possible way was a key strategy of managing the pandemic. If I have anything else to add to that, I will come back, and particularly if I have to correct the record. But I recall from my chair of the COVID committee arrangements that there were indemnity arrangements put in place for vaccine contracts.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
The contract between the European Health Agency and Pfizer included a provision that product indemnity was voided should Pfizer have committed fraud, such as in their vaccine approval process. Minister, does our contract with Pfizer include a similar get-out-of-jail-free clause for Australian taxpayers that allows the indemnity to be removed in the case of Pfizer misconduct or for any other reason? If not, on what basis, Minister, was the decision taken to absolve Pfizer of responsibility for any harm their substance caused?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I think it's probably best that I take that question on notice because it does. I wasn't a member of the government that entered into the arrangement. I'm not trying to not take responsibility, but I think it's probably best that I get an answer to you following taking some advice about that. I know there were elements of the contract that weren't public, and I don't know if there are some commercial in confidence arrangements in place, but I will seek to update the Senate with what information I can find in an attempt to answer your question, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. That would be appreciated, Minister. The TGA database of adverse events notifications lists 136,000 adverse vaccine events, the majority from Pfizer. Doctors have reported almost 1,000 deaths, thought to grossly underreport actual deaths, and the Australian Bureau of Statistics recently reported 15 deaths. Apparently, Australian taxpayers will carry that entire liability. Minister, have you personally read the contract, and will you release the Pfizer contract so that we can all see what the government agreed to?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. My answer is probably for this question is similar to my last question. I haven't personally read the contract with Pfizer, and I do understand that there might be elements of that aren't in the public domain in standard commercial in confidence arrangements. I do know that the TGA does report, as Senator Roberts pointed out, about adverse events, and I should say that there are a range of events within that, just any reaction to the vaccine, including the most severe reactions. But I would also say there's been millions and millions of doses provided through the vaccination program to protect Australians from COVID. So it has been overall a very, very successful vaccination program in protecting Australians from the worst effect of COVID-19. If there is anything further I can provide to the Senate, I will. Thank you.
Minister. Senator McDonald.
My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. The budget has forecast that gas prices are set to rise by 40% over the next 2 years. How does cutting millions of dollars of support for developing gas supply, including in the Cooper and Adavale basins, while also increasing funding to activists who oppose the development of gas supplies, curb rising gas prices?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. So this is the Senate in action, criticised for investments in Middle Arm and then criticised for other project decisions. This government does acknowledge that the gas and other fossil fuels will continue to be required to support Australia's energy system, and I think that's important to say to the chamber. And I think you see the results of that in the budget in terms of projects we support, but you also see that we do want to be part of the transformation and the move to a renewable energy future. And so you also see decisions like that in the budget. And that is what any responsible government should be doing at this point in time, making sensible investments where they stack up. In relation to Middle Arm, it's investing in those, the general use facilities that support that infrastructure, but also making sensible investments in renewable energy. So I think that is the approach the government's taken. We do acknowledge that gas prices have increased and are going to continue to increase. The government has had a number of responses to that, led by Minister King, which has delivered successfully in the short term on the supply issues, but there is more work to be done through the heads of agreement and looking at the codes of conduct and looking at where we can ensure that people are able to afford their energy bills and businesses are able to continue to operate in an environment
Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator McDonald.
Point of order on relevance, please.
The minister's being directly relevant, Senator McDonald. Minister Gallagher, did you wish to continue? Senator McDonald, first supplementary. The minister's completed her question.
So it is clear that the government has no real plan to address rising gas and energy prices or supply. Considering South Australia, Victoria and New South Wales are all set to experience energy shortages over the next 3 years, and gas makes up 22% of Australia's energy consumption, why has the government cut support for developing gas supply in the Cooper and Adavale basins? Won't this slowing of new supplies drive energy bills up rather than to help bring them down by, say, $275?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, we're trying to do a few things in this budget, and it's as I outlined in the first question, which is actually being an active participant in the transformation that's occurring in our energy system, dealing with the mess that we were left. We walked into government into a gas crisis. I mean, I know you try and rub that out, but essentially I remember Minister Bowen and Minister King leaving the swearing-in ceremony to go and deal with what was happening in the gas markets. That is what was happening. Okay? So we have taken a number of steps to deal with that. In fact, the focus of the first tranche of work was over dealing with the supply shortages that were being identified through the work of the ACCC. So we have actually dealt with that. We are investing in projects where it makes sense. We're not just giving money for subsidies. We're in Middle Arm, for example, we're supporting common use infrastructure, and we are supporting the shift to renewable energy at the same time.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McDonald, second supplementary.
Minister, can you cite a budget measure that will specifically help to lower gas bills for Australian households and businesses?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, there was a range of initiatives in the budget, including extra funding to the regulators to deal with the mess that we have inherited from you. So there is one. Well, you asked me the question. You said name one. There is funding for the regulators to make sure we are getting... Yeah, well, exactly. Well, you might not find that information useful, but the ACCC's report into the supply shortage informs government decision-making.
I will just wait until it's quiet again before I call the Minister. Minister. Have you completed... Oh, do you wish to complete your answer? Or have you completed? I've called you again because I sat you down. Yeah.
Sorry, President. Well, I was asked to name one, and those opposite are laughing at it, but they are... It's not a joke. It's not a joke because the regulators and the experts are the ones that identified the shortfall that you guys had your head in a sand over and we dealt with. So don't say it's a joke. Running out of gas is pretty serious. Running out of gas is pretty serious, and that's what you left, and we've fixed it.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Barbara Pocock.
Thank you, President. My question's to the Minister for Finance and Women. Minister, a budget sets out the values of a government. With every dollar it spends, it sends up a flare about what it stands for. Last night's budget was a chance to help Australians deal with very real cost of living pressures by redirecting stage 3 tax cuts. These cuts, $250 billion, flow to very wealthy Australians, mostly men, mostly older people. That'll widen income and gender inequality instead of helping those most in need. Why has your government stuck with a $9,000 annual tax cut for the wealthy, striking a real blow against Australia's progressive income tax system, while leaving low-income families struggling to pay for food, power and rent?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. The government hasn't changed its position on stage 3. Our focus in this budget, as we had said from the outset, was to deliver on our election commitments, to sensibly take pressure off cost of living for Australians and businesses where we could do so without impacting on inflation and dealing with the waste and rorts of the previous government. They were the objectives of the October budget. The tax cuts that don't come in for another 2 years. I think what this budget does, and there is substantial investment both on the payment side, $33 billion increase in the indexation arrangements for payments to help deal with some of the cost of living pressures that fixed and low-income households are under. There's also $500 million going to the community sector to deal with their indexation challenge that's been ignored for the last 10 years. to deal with some of the cost of living pressures that those organisations are under. And there's the first step in a pretty serious package for women as well. So I don't think it's an either-or. What this budget does is it sets out the challenges ahead. The Treasurer and I have made no secret about the spending pressures that are coming our way. And you can see that if you look at the medium-term projections and acknowledge that those 5 big spending programs are not going to change. We're going to see defence, aged care, hospitals, NDIS and the cost of servicing $1 trillion of debt are going to continue to place pressure on the budget. And we want a pretty upfront discussion about how we how we value those services, how we provide those services and how we meet the costs of them into the future. And that's part of, I think this is the first step in that discussion, and I think the Australian people are up for that discussion and they've got a responsible government that's prepared to have it with them.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. In my state, South Australia, I recently met with a group of people living on JobSeeker. They often cannot afford food or medicine. Their kids don't make it to school excursions. Their teeth give them pain every day. They're living on a JobSeeker rate of $48 a day, well below the poverty line, in one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. Why has your government refused to raise the poverty level of JobSeeker?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Gallagher.
Well, as I said, there is a significant increase in the JobSeeker indexation arrangement, $33 billion that will flow through to partly assist with some of those increases in cost of living pressure. But we don't pretend that there aren't continuing work to do in how we provide support and services to people on low income. But this budget is not the answer to everything. It is a point in time. It is the first opportunity to do what we said we would do, which is have a budget which delivers on our election commitments, which makes sensible investments, which ease cost of living without impacting on the short-term inflation problem that we have in the economy, and deals with the waste and rorts that we inherited from those opposite. That was the objective of this budget.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, there is no economic evidence that giving tax cuts to wealthy men will boost their work rate or their productivity or make any difference to GDP. However, there is buckets of evidence that supporting working carers and women will do all of these things. Why have you backed in a tax measure that mostly benefits wealthy men while offering women no superannuation on their paid parental leave, no lifting of the rate of paid parental leave to their normal pay rate, and making them wait 4 years to get to just 26 weeks?
Thank you. Well, the tax cuts that the senator refers to are in the budget and are factored into the budget, and the government hasn't changed its view on that. In terms of the other supports, this is an ongoing piece of work before the government. I mean, every budget we have said we will look at what we can do to support people, particularly those who rely on government support. We will assess that. You have seen that in this budget as the first step in a number of budgets where these issues will continue to be looked at across the ERC table. In terms of the investments in women or services for women, support policies, to progress gender equality, I think compared to what we've had in the last few years, this women's budget statement is a serious start in terms of looking at the issues, providing some analysis and starting with the policies that aim to fix it.
Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Sheldon.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Social Services, Senator Farrell. Can the Minister please inform the Senate how the Albanese government's social services commitments are supporting families and promoting the safety of women and gender equality?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and can I thank Senator Sheldon for his very important question and his interest in this important part of the federal government's policy. And of course the Albanese government is putting families and gender equality at the centre of policy making. This is not a new commitment. It's been at the centre of our decision-making processes. And we saw last night through the Treasurer's budget speech that we've dealt with this issue. In the lead-up to the 2022-2023 budget, we announced that we deliver the biggest boost to Australia's paid parental leave since it was created, giving every family with a new baby more choice, greater security and better support. The extension of paid parental leave is the first time the scheme has been modernised since the Labor government introduced the scheme in 2011, and it's the cornerstone of our commitment to address gender equality issues in this country. We're also deeply committed to ending violence against women and children in Australia, and we're taking action. To this end, the very fine Minister for Social Services released the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children 2022-2032. We've also introduced legislation for 10 days paid family leave and domestic violence leave per year to ensure that no one should have to choose between a job and seeking support to deal with domestic violence. We are conducting an open, competitive process to appoint a domestic, family and sexual violence commissioner to act as an advocate for victims and survivors, to oversee the implementation of the national plan, including the monitoring and evaluation. In addition, the budget released last night, we confirm our $1.7 billion commitment
Senator Farrell. Your time has expired. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
Can the Minister further please inform the Senate how the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children in 2022-2032, launched last week, will be implemented?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Sheldon for his supplementary question. And on the 17th of October 2022, that very fine Minister, Minister Rishworth, launched the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children 2022-2032, along with my colleague in the Senate, the Minister for Women, the very fine Senator Gallagher, and State and Territory Ministers for Women's Safety. In the plan, the government has set ourselves an ambitious goal to end violence against women and children in one generation. To support the plan, the Albanese government has committed $1.7 billion for women's safety initiatives. The plan includes example indicators for success that can track our progress in implementing this national plan. The national plan will also support by an outcomes framework that will increase our ability to track, monitor and report change over the life of the national plan.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
Can the Minister please inform the Senate how the Albanese government is supporting families and gender equality by boosting paid parental leave?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Sheldon for his second supplementary question. Increasing paid parental leave was one of the most frequent proposals raised at the successful Jobs and Skills Summit in September. The Albanese government has listened, has continued to consult and will now act to deliver the biggest expansion of the paid parental leave scheme since it was first introduced by Labor in 2011. The budget invests $531.6 million over 4 years and $619.3 million annually after that to progressively scale up the scheme to 26 weeks or 6 months by 2026. Our changes will benefit more than 180,000 families nationally. We know that many dads want to take more time off following the birth or adoption of a child. We see that increasing take-up of parental leave by dads in the...
Your time has expired. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Gallagher. Can the Minister please advise whether the government believes that demand for state and territory hospital services will increase or decrease over the next 4 years?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister.
Thank you. I think I know where this might be going. We expect that hospital activity and demand for hospital activity will increase. There has been a decrease in activity because of the pandemic. and that has been reflected in adjustments through the activity-based funding arrangement. But we are expecting that demand for hospital services will continue to grow as we normalise back into a post-COVID world. I would also say that those adjustments in the budget don't take into account the extra funding that went through the COVID payments.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Could the Minister please explain why, if she believes and states the government believes that there will be an increase in demand for hospital services, that there has been a $2.4 billion cut to hospital services that are being provided to the states and territories over the next 4 years, which they say is as a reflection of the reduction in the volume of hospital services that are demanded.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I would have thought, considering that you've recently been in government, that you would understand how the funding flows through in these. They are largely parameter adjustments that are based on the activity. They were on the activity that was advised through the activity-based funding. Well, that's the reality. That is the system that you have operated on. No, forecast activity and activity through the pandemic based on the data that the states and territories provide to the Commonwealth is reconciled through the budget process. It doesn't take into account the extra funding that has and will continue to be provided through the special payments under the COVID arrangements. And as people would know, through the very successful National Cabinet, we continue to work with the states and territories over pressures more broadly in the health system, including a broken primary care system, which you guys oversaw.
Expired. Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Thank you very much, President. Well, in confirming that there is a $2.4 billion cut to hospital funding, can the minister please explain why the government has decided that Victoria is to pay $2 billion of that $2.4 billion cut to hospital funding?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Gallagher.
I'm not sure I understand what two things you're linking there. No, well, I'm happy to take it on notice and come back to you. But there is an adjustment through forecast activity, reconciled based on the work the hospitals have done. And the reality is, during the COVID-19 pandemic, they did less of their activity, less of their normal activity that gets funded through this mechanism. That has been reconciled. There is additional funding going into health, I think in the order of $6 billion. So we continue to work with the states and territories. They've got a government that wants to talk to them, about how hospitals work, how the primary health care system works with that and how aged care works with that. You've got to see it on the continuum, and you'll see that in the budget. More funding for aged care, more funding for health, and working with the states and territories on a national health system.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Wong.
President, I ask that further questions be placed on notice.